is probably going to upset some people that listen to this, but I feel like I get so much older by the day. And the reason for that today is that playing with our son in the yard, I felt like I've never fallen since I was probably his age. I'm now not as spry as I used to be, right? Like there's a time in your life where you're so young you fall.
Yeah.
And then like you get to an age where you're well balanced. And I've not fallen in years.
Yeah.
And I tripped over my own feet running in the yard and fell. And to be honest, my arm hurts. It is so sore right now.
Yeah, it's hard getting older.
I'm not even 30.
Yeah, but you are in other ways.
Well, like that's different, but just like it's crazy how fast like it doesn't sneak up on you. It's just all of a sudden age is just there.
Yeah.
Like wow, okay, everything's different now.
And like it all happens just one thing after another with age. Like your metabolism slows down. That's your first indicator that you're getting older. Like you start not being able to eat like you used to. Your energy changes, and then you're uncoordinated again.
I don't want to be uncoordinated, though. I was just starting to be proud of how coordinated I was. Like, I can't be falling now. That one hurt pretty bad. But anyways, my name is Justin.
And I'm Labrie.
And this is the Better Together podcast. You did mention, like, being old in other ways. And, like, we've talked about that on the podcast.
We're old at heart.
Definitely. Like, go to bed early, wake up early, get things done early.
Yeah.
Like, 100% old people in those regards. Like
make a lot of food from scratch, old. Like
we act so old that my dad talking about somebody that he works with was like, well, you know, he's younger than us. He's 30. I'm like, Dad, I'm not 30.
I'm a little over 30. So,
but he said he's younger than us. He's 30, and I'm like, I haven't even I turned 30 this year. Like we're not even there yet.
Yeah.
So it's just like. You know that you're like an old soul when your parents think you're older than you are, right? Like of all the people to think something like that, like that your parents that think that, that's when you know that you're different.
Yeah. That's when you know you're not like everyone else your age.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not probably a bad thing,
the
way that things are going these days. But no, it's just funny. Like, well, we did so much. Well, I'm so used to having you help me do yard work. I've been complaining about that at work all week of like, man.
She really just made me do all this stuff.
No, I not said that. I'm just saying, like, I'm just ready for this whole pregnancy thing, you know, like, we need this just to be done, so that way she can get back to helping me do stuff, because right now she can't, and so I had to do all the things.
Y'all.
Well, and it's like, what I was doing on the weekend, like, with digging a big hole, and then mowing and cleaning out the animal enclosure, like, you couldn't really help with that.
Yeah. And it's not even really the heat and, like, that it's the humidity. It's too humid for me.
That has nothing to do with why you couldn't help, though.
I know, but I can't be outside because of that for longer periods of time, especially in the evenings right now. And like the mornings, great. Totally fantastic. You get home, I'm done.
It wasn't that bad today.
Yeah.
But you just don't even try. So
yeah. I had other things I needed to do.
This is so when we were in Florida, you got hot when we were out on a walk, and like my parents started to get worried about you. You are very weak, and I don't mean to be like insulting, but like you know it to be true, and so like I pretty much knew you were fine though. Now I took care of you when we got home, just so you'd be over it quicker.
Yeah,
but I'm not
it's
worried.
Just, it was hot.
Like, well, you were acting like you were on the verge of death.
No, I just wanted to be done and find the cool again.
Yeah, but that's not how you come off. You like normal people just say, I'm just hot, I'm just ready to be done. You act like the world's ending and that you're going to be sick. No, you freaked them out to a point where they were afraid because of the way that you were acting. And that's how you get with the heat. And but
I shut down when I get hot.
You allow yourself to shut down, right? Like, and I just am like, it's hot. We can't, like, it's like a cow in a field, right? You can't do anything about it. You're just there, so you might as well just deal with it, right? And you want to be just like, you want to act like there is a way to fix it. And it's like, no, you just got to go out there and do it. But my point was that you couldn't help with the manual labor stuff. And so it's like, I'm ready for this whole thing just to be ready so that I can get help again. But then the signs of being old still show up because you get done doing all that work. And then my knees are killing me.
My back.
my knees killed me and they were on fire.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure it's not the first time it's ever happened, but I've never noticed it before.
But you felt the heat radiate from your knees.
Yeah. And
because of the exertion.
We're all surprised when we get old. And we all know that it's coming. Yeah. The Bible even makes it very clear we're all going to get old.
Yep.
Right? But we all like struggle with that concept, and then it hits us and we're like, oh man, I'm getting old. But then old people are like, oh, you're not old. And it's like, I get it. I know that I'm not 60 and that you may be 60. And I realize that things are harder for you than they are for me at half your age. Mm-hmm. But I think we can all admit that when we're 30, it's a lot different than when we're 18.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing is like, it's like that concept of, well, you know, you twisted your ankle, but I broke my arm.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we're both hurt.
Yeah.
It's just one.
It's not a competition. I'm just trying to express.
Yeah. I just feel a little old right now. You know?
I'm feeling my age.
And I think we feel age different now than you would have before because of diets and the way that we all live. And like, it's just a lot softer of a world.
Yes.
But then we also are eating so much stuff that's bad for us. Like you bought that water thing.
Yeah.
And it had propylene glycol in it, which is in hand sanitizer. And I even mentioned that at work today. And there was hand sanitizer on the table and I picked it up. And you know what was in it? Propylene glycol, because I was right. The flavored water, I don't even remember what flavor you bought.
It was strawberry watermelon.
Strawberry watermelon water stuff, the stuff you squirt in your water. You read the
water flavors.
It's from Aldi. You read the ingredients and it says water and then it says propylene glycol, which is what is like one of the antibacterial agents in hand sanitizer. I don't think we should be drinking this.
Yeah. And like a lot of times I feel because of like the information we found out about Aldi when we first started going there, like how they were supposed to be a cheaper Whole Foods basically, where they're supposed to have nice clean ingredients and all of their stuff.
They try to have cleaner ingredients in their stuff. And like in that specific thing, I mean, they didn't have artificial colors.
So like I feel that safety in some of their stuff.
But I think that if you went to Whole Foods, you could still find processed food with things in it that you wouldn't want in there.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And so like we really got to just get back to just fully clean stuff. Like all on the best way to shop at the grocery store is to go around the outside of the grocery store and not to go to the inner aisles. The inner aisles is where all the stuff that's bad for you, makes you feel bad, and makes you fat is. But if you just live on the outside where the meat, the vegetables are, and the dairy, you're going to do a lot better.
It is a lot better that way. And like you feel better that way when you cut out all of that processed stuff, because all that does is, one, yes, it will fill you, but it's going to bog you down.
Well, so I've watched a lot of documentaries, and the thing about documentaries is they're very one-sided. But one major one that I watched recently, and I can't remember, well, that's not been that recently. I watched it within the last year, and it's about going vegan, right? And it's talking about these athletes and these people and this person, and they all went vegan, and it changed my life. I felt so much better after I went vegan. But what they don't talk about in that specific instance is how they weren't eating the same processed foods that they were before. Even if you were eating healthy, to eat vegan is even less processed stuff because you're trying to get no animal byproducts, which is a lot harder than you would think it would be. And so, and a lot of times when you go on a massive diet change like that towards vegan, you're also going to start cooking a lot of stuff yourself or going to more specific places that are more farm to table type things. And you're just going to be eating clean foods. And that's where the change comes. And it's the same thing with like the carnivore diet and these like meat heavy diets, is that people switch to those diets and like, wow, I feel so much better. And it's like, yeah, because you're not eating the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You're just eating the good things that don't have all of the processed stuff in them.
Even when people switch to like keto,
it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. You're cutting out a lot of processed stuff. Now, and if like you're doing true keto, like his parents do, like you're literally cutting out all processed stuff.
Yeah.
In the very beginning, and then you can add in like certain things.
Even the processed things that are keto specific, a lot of times are pretty good for you. Now it's starting to change a little bit because keto became a trend.
Yeah. So now there's a lot of
keto
friendly
things that are processed. But that's the thing about diet that people don't realize. They go on these massive diets and they're like, I feel so much better because I don't eat meat anymore. And it's like, yeah, because you're also not eating McDonald's anymore. Or you're not eating, these fried foods as much anymore, of course you feel better.
Yeah.
If you eat just non-processed stuff, vegetables and meat, it doesn't matter if you're eating just the vegetables or just the meat, you're going to feel better when you stick to just natural things, the way that God made it.
Yes, exactly.
Right? I don't think that God intended us to be eating raw stuff.
Yeah.
Because God also gave us fire, But, God consumed the meat on the altar through fire.
Yeah.
So we have to assume that there was some correlation between meat being cooked. Even the Levitical law tells you that meat ought to be cooked. So we go through all that. We should just be eating meat and vegetables.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And to the idea that we're not just eating meat and vegetables, when you think about it, sounds crazy. But we're eating things that are heavily processed that remove the nutritional value. You got to think, and this is no shot at your cousin, but she made those cookies that were banana pudding cookies to sell them. I don't know what's in them, but I can only assume to get that flavor of a banana in that it has to have some kind of processed extract-y thing in it that changes the banana, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't even like it was banana flavor. It was biting into banana pudding.
Well, to me, banana pudding just tastes like really the essence of banana, so that's where I would.
Because it's slightly different to me.
She might have used the mix from a banana pudding.
She could have used
but either way,
pudding.
When you mess with food, it messes with you. I'm not a big fan. I don't agree with a lot of European culture and mindset. But there's a few things they've done correctly. And one of those is the non-GMOs. They've got strict food guidelines. And they don't run
pesticides on their wheat and things.
And then the best thing, though, is that they don't run their world on corn syrup.
Yeah.
So everything here's got corn syrup in it. And corn syrup is one of the worst. It's just pure carbs. Or pure just not good for you, basically, right? It's distilling that butter that they put on movie theater popcorn. It's that's not what we should eat, right? It's good. It's not what we should eat. It's kind of like that concept, and I've talked about it before, of spiritual junk food.
Yeah.
And then real junk food. Well, if you took somebody and they had no knowledge of understanding health or food or anything like that, and you gave them a cupcake and then you gave them a Brussels sprout, they'd be well, of course the cupcake's the one that's good for you because it tastes good. It feels good in the moment. But that's not the truth, right? The Brussels sprout is what's good for you. That's what tastes good in the moment. And in other episodes of the podcast, of the More God Less Me podcast, I've likened that to sin. To the flesh, sin tastes good.
Yeah.
It feels good. It feels like the right thing to do, but it's not good for you because every sin has consequences both in this life and obviously in the next life to come. But the things that don't always feel the best are the best for you. Prayer isn't always what you want to do, but you'll feel much better after doing it than you will after sinning and things like that. But food, 100%, you can notice the difference. And it's funny, though, I even listened, there's a guy that's a cowboy on YouTube, and he talks a little bit of philosophy stuff, and now he's got a Bible channel. But he talks about these things. And I listened to one thing he was talking about, and he's talking about being on the carnivore diet. Now, as I just said, I don't think vegetables are always the problem. Now, you have to be careful with vegetables because sometimes you can cause, some vegetables are anti-inflammatory, but some aren't. And so you can have, but it wouldn't matter if you just have a balanced diet, right? If you eat Brussels sprouts every day, probably you're going to have problems. If you eat carrots every day, you're going to turn orange. So
exactly.
It's not a good idea to just, I do think we were created for variety.
And created for balance.
Well, hence why we have seasons, right? There's different foods at different seasons. And when you look at, the foods that are some of the first to pop up, asparagus is one of the first foods that'll grow in a garden in the summertime or the spring.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's also one of the most nutrient-rich foods. And so it's interesting that after winter comes one of the most nutrient-rich foods. So when nothing's growing and you're lacking nutrients, you come out of that to a very rich and nutrient thing.
Yeah.
But I got lost. Oh, but he was talking about the carnivore diet. And he got into that whole thing about I know that it makes me feel so much better. I know this is the way that I should eat because I feel better on it. But I still end up falling into these ruts where I don't do it. And I'm that is so
Bible
true.
Verse.
Yeah. I know what I ought to do, but I don't do it. And I don't do
what I know that I ought to do.
Yeah. Or what I want to do. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. And it's like Paul writes that, and he's obviously making the correlation to sin.
Yep.
But man, is that not true in every aspect of our life?
Yes.
Like, I know that I should go work out, but I'd much rather sit on the couch and not do anything. Yeah. I know, even in the aspect of like, I know I should read a book instead of watch a YouTube video, but man, there's some reason there's a pull to watch the YouTube video instead of read the book.
Because it feels mindless.
Yeah.
But it's still stimulating. And we talked about that before. Like, even though it is a mindless activity, it is still stimulating your brain, and it is causing like dopamine reactions in you. So you want more and more and more, and you crave it. But you read a book and it's tiring. It's mentally tiring, which is good. Because you need to be mentally and physically tired in order to get a good night's rest.
Yeah.
So it just makes it difficult.
Well, that's the thing is like, if you go work all day, like you can be physically drained, but you can have trouble sleeping because you're not mentally drained.
Yep.
But then even if you spend all day like mentally draining yourself, if you're not physically drained, then you're not going to have anything. Really, life is all about balance.
Yep.
And like that goes to food, that goes to activity, and like what you're doing. And it's not a bad thing to watch TV or to watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast, but you've got to have balance in it. And that's what I'm trying to get better at, is not always listening to something, because like I think podcasts are good. It's enjoyable. Depending on what you do for a living, it can be a good way to just like get through your work day and like be doing something simultaneously.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it can become something that distracts you from everything else. And anything that distracts is what we don't want in our life, especially if it's distracting us from God.
Exactly.
But we need to have that balance of things in our life. There's a time to listen, and there's a time to enjoy the silence.
Yes.
You know? And that's something I'm trying to instill in our child, is the idea of silence, right? Like there's a time to be excited and talk, but that's not all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes like you need to find ways to just be able to be quiet. And that's a good thing.
And doing it when prompted.
Yeah.
is the thing, because there are times when, you know, he can entertain himself and be completely quiet and chill, but that's not when you ask him to do it. When you ask him to do it, it's like pulling teeth out, trying to make that happen. It's like, I need you to understand, this is quiet time now.
Yeah, well, it's like anything else. You don't want to do what you've been asked to do. But you definitely need that balance. And even going back to like the age thing, like at some point, you've got to realize where you're at age-wise and find balance in that.
Yeah.
Like we can't just lay down and not do anything. We also need to balance that with what we are able to do. And so like, as
what
I
you're
get
able
older,
to do and what, like, because sometimes ability and what you should be doing to be your healthiest is
well, what I mean
different.
like is I have to take note on like on the weekends. Like I kind of want to try to get a bunch of really big, heavy things done all at one time, but that's only going to cause me pain and cause it to hurt my body. So like what I used to be able to do, I may not be able to do as much now. And that's something that you got to balance out over time.
You may have to pick one hard physical activity to do on the weekend and that be your thing, not 3 different ones.
That's hard when you have to mow. That was the real thing. It was like, and then the cleaning out the chicken coop, it was just came down to the fact of like, this is getting to be bad. It needs to be done. But it is what it is.
Yeah. You do what you got to do sometimes, but you learn from it.
Yeah. I'm just glad that we've gotten better about doing things during the week.
Yeah.
To where like today, I played disc golf with our son and like had that time earlier. I even read some of a book while I was waiting on you guys to be ready to do this podcast. Now we're doing the podcast, and it's like we don't have as much time of just like, oh, sit back and be lazy and chill.
Yeah.
But we don't need that every day.
Yeah. And
it's
like,
so hard.
You feel so good when you are doing things.
Yeah.
Like you went outside and played with our son. I was inside. I was cleaning up, doing different things, started editing the video that's supposed to be coming out. Well, should have already came out now by the time you were listening to this.
Yeah, hopefully.
And just different things, getting that done. So y'all are doing something physical activity. I'm doing my inside physical activity, and we're all going to feel good, and we're all going to sleep great tonight.
Yeah. It's more just like trying to find that balance in the evening, because like it's easy to want to just like lay out and not do anything, but then that's not going to help us any, you know. You're not going to like I think you feel more regret from watching TV or watching and doing those things than you do if you would just go out and do something enjoyable that you like.
You're never going to regret spending time with your family and doing things together and accomplishing stuff.
Yeah.
But you are going to regret not.
It's like that movie Click, right? Like he gets, turns out really bad movie.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that when I tried to rewatch it again the other day. Maybe it's because I only ever saw the TV version. I don't know.
We saw the TV version and we probably watched it when we were younger and things just kind of went over our heads.
Because then you put it on Prime the other day, it's like, whoa.
Oh.
Not going to watch this movie. We didn't even make it through the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, I remember though, in the end of that movie, the premise is like he gets that remote and he's able to like fast forward through things, but he gets to the end of his life and he regrets not being a part of those little things that he didn't value at the time. And so it's like we can not value our lives sometimes and, waste our time by just like being distracted by the glowing box instead of, spending time with family, instead of growing and building the relationship. And what's sad is that a lot of times we don't build that relationship when our children are young. And then they end up leaving and they don't have a connection to us.
Yeah.
And so we want to have that connection once they get older and are gone, but they feel no draw to have the connection with their parents anymore.
Yep.
I think that's a big part of the reason why certain people, you see them move away and not come back and visit and not interact as much is because they don't feel connected on like the aspect. It's not that they don't love each other, but there's not that connection of like, oh, well, like we have a bond where we do things together and enjoy each other's company.
There's not that bond.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I feel drawn to be with you and be around you and share with you.
Yeah, because we've made a habit of doing those things.
Yeah.
And so I think if we want to have a strong family life later, you have to establish it now.
Yes.
And that goes into all things. Like if we want to have a strong relationship once the kids are gone, we can't have a weak one now.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to do things when you're in the habit of doing them.
Yeah.
Like I always want to point everything in these podcasts back to the Bible, but like it's a lot easier to pray when you pray every day.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to read your Bible when you read your Bible every day. And when you stop doing those, it's harder to do them periodically than
1000%.
it is to do them every day. It's a lot easier to come home and watch TV every day when you come home and watch TV every day. But when you come home and do something every day, it's a lot easier to stay in that rhythm and that momentum. Now, of course, life's going to change in a few months when we have this baby. Life's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to affect how we do things. I'll be honest. I don't know what it's going to be like with this one because we now have another kid, and so it's going to be interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot more time of like, all right, me and him are going to go do this just to get
a little divide and conquer.
A little like, let him do something fun, let you be able to do what you need to. But like, because when we had the first child, there was a whole lot more of like just hanging out. For 3 weeks, it was basically just sitting at the house. I went to the grocery store a couple times. I left you once to go fish.
Yep.
Because it was like it was my last week off, and I was like, let me leave for an extended period of time, not to be away from you, but so you can figure out before you have to figure out what it's going to be like.
So if everything goes terrible, you can call me and I can come back.
Yeah.
Unlike next week.
And then you know next week what to expect and how to circumvent it. And so I was like, because it sounds bad a little bit.
Yeah.
And I always like to, that was honestly our conversation.
A trial run.
Yeah.
To me being alone with the baby.
Because
I've had the support.
Yeah, and you've never been alone with your baby before.
Yeah.
It was just as new to you as it was to me.
Exactly.
But this time it's going to be a lot different because we have another kid. And so I think a lot of it's going to be like, well, we'll see you later. We're going to go, to the park or do this or do that. Or just come down here.
Yeah.
To get, because like the honest truth is that, like we talked about earlier, we're trying to work with him to be quiet. And he's not quiet right now. And if we don't break through that, it's going to be very difficult when the little one trying to sleep and the big one trying to be just who he's always been.
Yeah. And like, we understand that he's going to adjust, the baby's going to adjust. And like, yes, if he's talking or whatever, baby may not stir and things like that because of his voice, because it's just a normal ambient sound to baby.
Yeah.
but we're still going to try to create healthy habits.
Well,
like it's going to allow everyone to be happy and healthy.
But the other thing though is that if we're not careful, then he'll just act out. Like, not that he acts out now, I was going to say he'll act out more, but he'll end up acting out because he doesn't feel valued in that time because all your focus goes somewhere else. And that can be very difficult.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, we both had younger siblings and I don't remember it fully because I mean, like even I was 7, but still that's a long time ago. But I know that like my parents talk about like, you get clingy or whatever. And it's like, well, you still got to pour into them, but it's back to balance. This is the balance episode. Because it's all about trying to find that balance and figure out, like, how can we best support him? How can we best support the new child? And all this stuff, like, to our generation, I feel like sometimes it can sound like, oh, that's pretty, loosey-goosey. Yeah. Or not loosey-goosey, but just like,
New agey.
You can find, like, a lot of things that like, I've said to people, I'll be like, I know this sounds new agey, but... And it's like...
It's the truth. It's not new agey. It's old agey.
Well, yeah, you just need to take care of people, right? Like, we're supposed to take care of our children. We're supposed to take care of our families. And if we're not doing the best for him and the best for her, then we're not doing the best that we can.
Exactly.
Right? We can't value one over the other. We just need to be purposeful. And, like, that's our whole thing is about being a proactive parent.
Yeah.
That's what the class that we teach at church is entitled.
Yeah.
And we have to be proactive. We have to make purposeful decisions.
And we have to set purposeful guidelines and be decisive and already plan ahead for everything.
Yeah.
And you can't plan ahead for everything, but you can anticipate a lot of stuff and set expectations.
Every child that has a sibling born after it struggles a little bit with how they're going to act. So it's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and plan to just make sure that I don't completely limit the attention that I give this one, which isn't a bad thing. That's the way that it should be.
Yeah.
It just sadly doesn't work out like that all the time. Not at the fault of anybody.
Yes.
But the one that's crying is the one that's going to need the nurturing.
Yes.
The
one that can't do for itself at all is going to need more.
Yeah.
And need different than the child that can assist and do their own thing at times.
We got to remember, even like when we got the dog or the cat, and like when you first get that animal, especially the inside thing, like you're giving a lot of attention to that dog because for one, you don't want it peeing on the floor.
Exactly.
And other things, you're trying to train it and get it and stuff.
You don't want your stuff destroyed.
You see a little bit of him being like, hey, wait a minute, what about, or like when the cat came, now we're trying to train the dog to be friends with the cat and not kill the cat and like let the cat feel confident in its area.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily not have the dog attack the cat, but it's not have the dog over love the cat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new toy.
This animal does not realize she is giant and can't just give all of her love to all the things.
Yeah, but now they've worked it all. Like, it's all works.
There's a great dynamic now.
in the house now.
The cat attacks the dog. The dog thinks it's fantastic.
But through those moments, we, like, saw even how he reacted to those.
Yeah,
like,
he was
really
like, oh,
wanting
they're
to be
getting
involved.
in on play, and I'm going to jump in. Like, don't do it. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah. Well, the thing, too, though, is, like, he's going to want to help with things.
Yep.
And that's very sweet, but it's also not going to be very helpful. So it's like, got to try to remove him from that situation.
Initial learning to feed the dog, pour in the food and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the baby, though.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to want to, like, oh, well, let me do this or that. It's like, all right, I just need you to let me do this and be done with it,
Well, and we've realized that with our friends' kids who have siblings and stuff like that. I was over there the other day, and the little boy that's the oldest, who's a little older than Oliver, he was helping with the baby and trying to move baby about and just be friendly. And he had a good hold on baby. He was under the arms. But the younger brother came to try to help and was grabbing baby by the neck, trying to move baby around. So I was like, ooh, good try, but we got this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's they're not trying to be malicious. They just don't know any better, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't help that, baby is almost as big as the middle child.
Yeah.
Because, how kids grow.
Mm-hmm. I think it's all going to be fine, though. I'm just ready to be there and be. I don't like waiting.
Yeah.
So I'm just ready to be in this point and be done with it and all that stuff. Get past the heavy lifting of, like having to be at the hospital and all that stuff. And
and like the main thing right now for me is, okay, when exactly is this going to baby come? Like, because I had to be induced early with our son, and I could have to be induced early with this one, or baby could come early on their own, or I could not have to be induced and baby could come late. Like, all those variables. That's
Yeah.
what gets me. I'm like, ugh.
I'm kind of hoping for induction again.
Yeah.
Need a nice Friday, like the way my time off from work's a nice even 2 weeks. Like I don't want this like, oh, it's Wednesday, here it comes.
It was very convenient.
It was much more convenient.
Yeah. Like we went in on a Saturday and bam, there we go. Sunday early in the wee hours, baby came and you were off work from then.
Yep.
So
I like that a lot better.
And the thing is like I get told like Tuesday or Thursday before.
You got told Thursday.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, so we're gonna have a baby this weekend.
No, it was we're gonna have a baby tomorrow because at first they told us to come in
on
Friday evening.
Yeah.
And then they were like, we're too busy. Come tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Like, what?
We're too full right now. Come in a few hours. Oh. Okay.
But they gave him a very easy birthday to remember.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It worked out great for everyone. But if we can have that again, that would be great. But I'm at the point now, it's like, I'd kind of like to know already. Like, are we there?
We didn't know
not?
At this point then either, though. So.
I know.
But.
Well, I didn't know till last minute with that.
Mm-hmm.
So
hopefully we're planned overtime and all kinds of other stuff. And then you were like, hey, I was like, oh, well, now I'm going to have to go back to work tomorrow. Like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do any of those things I agreed to.
It's like, my bad.
Mm-hmm. My wife's bad. I'm just kidding.
It was the doctor's office bad because they didn't call me like they were supposed to.
Yeah, supposedly they were supposed to call and talk about that earlier, and then they just scheduled it and never told us.
Yeah. The doctor comes in and was like, okay, so we're having a baby Friday. I'm like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
He's like, no one called you? No one called me. Like, okay, well, we have you scheduled for induction tomorrow. Oh, okay, let me call my husband.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine. She's like, are you okay with this? Like, are you fine? Do you not want? I'm like, I'm fine. I need a process. So
it was medically related because of your blood pressure. Like you mentioned, they had to induce just safety. To be safe. And like 2 weeks, not a big deal.
Yeah. He is fully developed at that point.
Yeah. Everything, so it was fine. It was easier because that means he was 2 weeks smaller than he could have been.
He could have been 9 pounds, but instead he was 7.
Yeah.
Praise God.
But it was all, it's all just the way it worked out was good. Mm-hmm. I didn't enjoy the hospital. I don't enjoy any hospital. Yeah. I'm not looking forward to going to the hospital again.
You're already trying to talk your way out of it.
Jokingly. You're going to make me sound like legitimate. Like, no. The other thing, though, is that I'm really looking forward to going camping again. We were talking about that when we were outside earlier. I'm like, man.
Yeah, and all I hear was, without mommy.
He really pulls that one out. What's funny, though, is when we went camping last time, he was like, sometimes mommies can go. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, that's fine. If mom wants to go, that's no big deal. Yeah. But it was just funny. He's like, without mommy. Okay.
Thanks. Love you too, bud. But he was really missing you this week thus far because of your overtime.
Yeah, 1 day of overtime and the world ends.
Yes. We had a full-on pout session for a good 15, 20 minutes because of you not being home.
Well, it's going to happen again next Monday, so.
Yeah, we might go swimming next Monday.
Well, it'll be hot. It's finally getting hot, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy that it's finally going to be warm outside and not be cold anymore. It was cold this morning. It was like 50-something degrees outside, which felt cold. Obviously, it's not that cold. But, like, the thing is like, now it's hot outside. So then you come inside, like our house. Yeah. We set it to 69. Mm-hmm. And I've been freezing to death because I'm so used to being warm outside now. Mm-hmm. Then you come in the house and it's freezing, but then you wake up and now it's so cold that the air kicked off and it's just that time of year where everything's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But like this morning, I had to park further away than I normally do, and I walk in and it's cold walking all the way in. But then because you got cold, you walk into the building and you're like, oh man, it's hot in here. You feel like a woman going through menopause. You're like, this is ridiculous. I'm hot and cold. I don't get it.
It's like, I can't be comfortable. Like, why can't I find this balance? But it's just part of the season change.
Yeah.
And sadly, we all go through it. But for me, at this point in pregnancy, I'd much rather be cold because I can get warm really easy. But I cannot cool down as easy. Mm. So I'm enjoying all the freezing cold, but then you wake up and you feel 1,000,000 degrees because the air hasn't run all night.
Yeah.
So that's not fun.
No, well, we're about to get in where the air doesn't stop running because I think then today is the last cool day, and then I don't know what tomorrow is. I think 89, and then after that, it's just a bunch of 90s for the rest of the week.
It is going to cool down like on Saturday. It's going to get down to 88.
Saturday is going to be 90. It says 88 now, but I don't believe it because it's Friday's 91, Saturday's 88, and then Sunday's 92. So I've got a feeling it's probably going to be still hot on Saturday.
Yeah, but our gumbo season may be over with now because it'll be too hot.
I don't live outside. Like,
I just wanted to see
that's
what
what
you
cracks
would
me up.
say.
Like nowadays, like I get it. Like if you lived back in the day where you like had to cook, like you had to cook outside, right? Like you had to have an outdoor kitchen because it was so hot.
Yeah.
So that way the house didn't get hot, which I'm not opposed to if we ever had the space. But and then the idea of like, oh well, like we can't have soup now because it's like, no, this is 2024. I've got an air conditioning. We live in the South. We live in the state of Tennessee, which is where air conditioning is just king. We have the best air conditioning in the world. I really feel that way.
Yes.
And I got rebuked on the last podcast that I talked about that, so I'm not going to go in detail again. But I just thought I really feel like everywhere else I go, like their air conditioning in other states is not to the same par as ours. Even like at the mall.
Yeah.
You go to our mall and the air conditioning is great. And you go to the mall in other places and it's so hot.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did think it's funny. I watched that video last night where they were in Sweden in the Arctic Circle. And he was like, one thing we've learned here is that these people really love their heat. And they're like, well, yeah. Because it's 30 degrees out. Or like, they started at 25 and then they ended up in like the negatives.
You get white lashes from the frost.
Yeah. Well, they were sled dogging whenever they got the white lashes. But still, it's like crazy.
So of course you like the heat. Of course you like your fire.
I don't mind a little bit of cold, but I don't want to live in the cold. I told you the other night, I was like, I'm going to retire in Arizona. I'm going to go where it's hot.
Yeah, they say that it's a dry heat, so it's different. We did learn a dry cold is much different.
Yes.
Like that.
Well, that's the thing is you notice too is like here, because like it's always humid. It doesn't matter if it's cold or if it's hot. It's humid pretty much. Like we get a few days a year, like the last couple of days where it's in like the 30% humidity range. But even in the fall, or in the wintertime, it'll be 30 degrees and it'll be like a 50 to 60% humidity. But you go to Colorado and it's so much less humidity when it's cold.
It feels like 0% humidity.
But that's why when it gets to like the teens here, there's no humidity because everything freezes. Yeah. And then you go outside and you're like, it's not that cold. But 40 degrees in Tennessee feels worse than like 12 degrees in Tennessee. Yeah. It's weird.
It's strange. And like 17 degrees in Colorado wasn't the worst.
7 degrees. It was 7 when we'd wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was cold, but it wasn't the same. But the altitude.
Yeah.
And the dryness. I don't like the dry. I'd have a hard time in Arizona. Like that's true.
Yeah.
I'd have to adapt. Because like I've never drank so much water, and I drink a lot of water. Yeah. I was taking, because like you're on a trip, so like we're in a hotel room for half the time when I'm in class for work, and you fill it full of water bottles. And I'd fill my backpack full of water bottles. Like the first day I took like 4 water bottles to class and it wasn't enough. So then I added another one and another one. By the end of the week, I felt like I just had a whole case of water with me.
Yeah.
Because he was just drinking a ton. And then like your lips are chapped, your nose is bleeding. Like it was crazy.
It got to the point where you were like, buy me chapstick.
Yeah, which is rare.
Like never once had you ever asked for chapstick. You're like, I have to have it.
Yeah.
This is too
But my lips
dry.
like bled at one point because it was so dry. It was awful.
Yeah, your lips were bleeding. Our noses were bleeding. We could not consume enough water.
That was God's lesson of like, you don't really want to live in Colorado.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know. Like at first I thought like Colorado seems great. 300,
it's really pretty.
300 days of sunshine. You get some snow. It never gets that hot in certain places, so you can go do fun stuff.
I think the cabin we were in
did not have air conditioning.
Didn't have an air conditioner.
Yeah.
Like
they said if it gets stuffy, then just open the windows and turn the fan on. But they said it doesn't get that hot up there because you're at 10,000 feet of elevation. Of course, it doesn't get that hot, right? Like 75 is like, whoo, it's a scorcher today.
Which is mind-boggling to us. Like, wow. But
Well, they talk about the weather in Tennessee changes fast. We remember being out there on that river, and we were trying to fly fish. It's freezing cold. We had to do it because we were there.
Yeah.
And we're trying to fly fish, and we noticed something.
On the dream stream.
That's what they call it. It wasn't a dream for us.
No.
And it was the wrong time of year, to be honest. But we had to try.
We had to try. We were there. When else were we going to be there?
Exactly. It's been 5 years. Mm-hmm. But we noticed a storm out on the horizon, and it starts blowing closer, and like it's kind of dark. You couldn't really tell what it was at first. Yeah. It's just like it looks odd. Look, it looks like
look at that over
maybe
there.
It's snowing or something. And all of a sudden, it was just there, and the whole bottom dropped out. Like the temperature just vanished.
Yes.
Every bit of warmth that we had, which was not much, was gone. I've never been fly fishing and just broke the rod in half. Like, not broke it, but like taken the pieces out, took it down in half, and just thrown it in the back of the car.
Literally.
It was so
popped it in half, thrown it in.
Suddenly cold. And it wasn't just us. Like, the people who were from Colorado and were there were leaving because of what it was doing. Yeah. And it didn't even snow that much, but it got so cold.
Well, the water on the line was freezing as you're reeling it in.
It was freezing in the eyelets. So then you couldn't even like actually fish anymore. It was so cold. That was a trip.
Because it was fine at first, but then like it started plummeting. The storms got close, and we just had to chill in the car for a little bit.
Yeah.
And let that pass some. So it was an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
One that we'll tell for many years.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot because it's just crazy. It still blows my mind. That whole trip was pretty worthwhile, and I'm glad that work paid for me to fly out there and back.
Exactly.
That was the true benefit of it. But that did remind me, talking about work though, is that was my other thing about being old, is that where I work at, we get a lot of interns every year. And I used to feel like, oh man, they're going to think that I'm one of them, you know? And then now I feel like that's probably not the case anymore.
There's enough separation. Your body has matured enough in its looks that it's like, okay, yeah, he's a real adult.
Yeah.
And we're kids.
Yeah. And I don't know which one's good or which one's bad, but it's just funny. I've always thought like, oh man, they're going to think I'm one of them. And like you kind of see that look on their face of like looking at you when you walked up back in the day. And I feel like now I'm just old.
Yeah.
Like, it's just an old guy.
They've noticed the little grays slipping in, that wisdom peeking out.
Yeah. That's what it is. I did feel bad the other day, but like we have badge doors that you have to get in, and like you can hold the door for somebody, but I'm walking out and this girl's trying to badge in, and I'm sure she's an intern because she was young looking and was struggling, and she's trying to badge in, and we were coming out the door, and she kind of looked at us, and I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't let you in there. I was like, if your badge isn't working, I can't just like open the door for you, even though it's a green badge. And so yeah, that didn't.
I don't know what access you have, so I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, nope, not letting you in.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I think that's all that I've got.
All right. Well,
we went long and wide, talked about balance, talked about kids, talked about being an old person. So
we covered it all.
Yeah.
But we hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. And if you have, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, comment, all those good things. Come back on Monday and listen to the More God Less Me podcast. But in the meantime,
if you listen this long to the podcast, you are awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And if there's anything you would like to know, any questions you'd like to ask about faith, about life, about our lives, about anything, if there's anything you'd like to see us make in a future episode of the podcast, please let us know, because we would love to talk about it. It's not that we're searching for topics, but if there's specific things that people would like to listen to, then that's what we would also like to produce.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk and talk and talk all day long, but if there's something specific that you want to hear about, please let us know, because otherwise we're just going to share whatever is on our heart.
Yeah, and we're just going to weave an interesting tale of conversation.
Exactly. I mean, what else would you expect from us?
Yeah, and that's pretty much what this, like, there's a podcast I listen to called The Banter, and they do a good job of it, but I think we could give them a run for their money of just bantering on and on about random things.
Listen, if you want to get on some rabbit trails, we got you.
Yeah. We have lived a life, not like we've done anything crazy, but we've gotten into enough random stuff to be able to talk about just about any subject. Yeah. I can get with you on almost anything at this point.
Yep. And if you don't have the information, I probably do, because we just are well balanced that way.
Yeah. Maybe we're too too divided. There's too many divisions of this pie. The slices are getting too small.
Anyways, we hope
that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
If you think about, like, if you take your life and you start slicing out sections of it for certain things, eventually you're going to get slices of pie that are no good for anybody.
Yep.
That are worthless. So you need to think about what you're actually dividing your life into to make them worthwhile for what you're giving out.
It's good stuff.
Did you slice yourself too thin, and what's profound. The point? Hey, that's what I'm here for.
All right. But we are going to go ahead and call it for this episode.
Oh, wait.
Nope. We hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and God bless.
God bless.